The faint shuffle of cards echoed in the dimly lit room, mingling with the soft clink of glasses and muted laughter. The air smelled faintly of tobacco smoke and polished wood, tinged with the sharp metallic scent of the nearby rifle racks. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary evening in a small French village, one of those evenings meant for leisure, a brief reprieve from the grim reality outside. But inside this modest house, the stakes were far higher than anyone playing for chips could imagine. Marie Dupont, a woman in her early 30s with calm, steady hands and eyes that seemed to notice everything, sat at the table. She smiled politely as the German officers across from her exchanged jokes, their polished boots tapping on the floor in rhythmic certainty. They believed themselves untouchable, that their dominance over this occupied corner of France was absolute. They had no idea that every casual word, every careless gesture, was being noted by her, every detail carefully stored in the secret ledger hidden beneath the table. It all began months earlier. The war had seeped into every corner of Marie's life, the rationing, the curfews, the endless whispers of fear. She had lost family members to the advancing army and watched friends disappear, taken by suspicion or worse. But Marie refused to submit to despair. She made a decision that would define her life. She would fight, not with guns or bombs, but with her mind, her courage, and her remarkable ability to blend in. She became part of the resistance. Her mission was dangerous, almost impossibly so, yet she knew the smallest piece of information could save lives. Imagine sitting there, heart pounding beneath the calm exterior, knowing that one wrong glance or ill-timed laugh could mean death. Marie's fingers traced the edges of the cards, her mind calculating far more than the hand she was holding. Each officer at that table was a puzzle, a story, a weakness waiting to be uncovered. She memorized their schedules, the way they spoke to one another, the subtle signals that revealed orders and troop movements. In a room filled with laughter, she was acutely aware of silence, the unspoken truths that hovered between each word, waiting for someone sharp enough to notice. The villagers whispered about Marie, some suspicious, others admiring her courage quietly. But she needed no recognition. Her satisfaction was silent, measured in the lives that were preserved, the soldiers she helped evade danger, and the critical intelligence that eventually reached the Allied forces. Little did the Germans know, they were playing into her hands, believing themselves untouchable, while unknowingly providing her the very information that could change the tide of local operations. And yet, the stakes were personal as well. Every night she returned to her small home, nerves frayed, body exhausted, and mind racing. She kept a journal in secret, detailing her observations, every coded note a lifeline for the resistance. She often stared at the candle, flickering against the walls, thinking about the risks. What would you have done in her place, sitting with the enemy, outwardly calm while knowing that one wrong move could end everything? The first evening at the card table had been a test, a delicate dance of poise, charm, and nerve. But as weeks turned into months, the situation became increasingly tense. Suspicion within the German ranks grew, a whisper here, a misplaced glance there. Marie sensed the danger closing in, but she had to maintain her act. One misstep, one faltered smile, and it would all be over. Outside, the village slept uneasily. The wind rustled through the narrow streets, carrying the distant sounds of artillery, occasional gunfire, and the ever-present hum of occupation. In this fragile bubble of normalcy, Marie carried a secret power, knowledge. Knowledge that could save lives, disrupt operations, and turn the chaos of war into a small, quiet triumph of cunning and courage. But the war was unpredictable. Even the most meticulous planning could not account for human error, sudden inspections, or betrayal from within. Marie's journey had only begun, and soon, the stakes would escalate beyond anything she had imagined. As she glanced around the table, forced a smile, and picked up the next card, a shadow of doubt flickered across her mind. Could she maintain this delicate balance, or was one slip of the tongue, one nervous twitch, about to undo everything? Meanwhile, outside the house, the world moved on. Soldiers marched, whispers spread, and the weight of war pressed on every street and home. Inside, Marie's eyes darted to the subtle cues, every movement, every word a piece of a larger puzzle. The night stretched ahead, long and tense, and the future of countless lives rested on her quiet, unassuming courage. And then, something unexpected happened, a visitor, unannounced, arriving at her door, bringing with them a message that could change everything. Little did Marie know, the next decision she made would push her deeper into danger than ever before. The cards were not just a game anymore. They were the thin line between life and death. The weeks that followed turned every card game into a delicate battle of nerves. Marie Dupont had become an unspoken fixture in the officers' evenings, a presence they trusted, even as her mind raced with the secrets she was gathering. She memorized orders whispered in corridors, the subtle changes in supply shipments, the arrival and departure of troops. Each bit of information was meticulously recorded in her ledger, a ledger that had to remain invisible under the ever-watchful eyes of the occupiers. One evening, a senior officer, Major Klaus Richter, joined the table. He was sharper than the others, his gaze penetrating, and he asked questions that seemed casual but carried the weight of scrutiny. Marie's heart pounded with every word, every pause. She answered lightly, laughing when appropriate, never revealing the storm of awareness within her mind. Could she maintain her calm under such piercing observation? She knew the slightest hesitation could be fatal. As the evening wore on, Marie noticed a subtle pattern, a sequence of signals between Richter and a junior officer that hinted at a planned raid. She had to act, but delicately. She scribbled the details and coded symbols on the back of the ace of spades, pretending to adjust her cards while her hand trembled ever so slightly. Her pulse was deafening in her ears. If anyone noticed, it would mean immediate execution. Yet she forced herself to breathe, to smile, to maintain the illusion of normalcy. The next day, word reached the resistance that a village nearby was at risk. Marie's intelligence, drawn from whispered conversations and the officers' careless gestures, allowed the resistance to warn the villagers in time. Lives were saved. But the victory was bittersweet. Every success increased the risk. The Germans began noticing small discrepancies, missing reports, unusual behaviors, subtle slips that could not easily be explained. Marie felt the pressure tightening like a vice around her chest. One evening, a storm broke over the village. Rain lashed against the windows, thunder shook the walls, and the officers were stranded inside Marie's home, seeking warmth and camaraderie. In the flickering candlelight, secrets that were normally whispered in hallways were now spoken aloud. She realized that Richter suspected someone within the village was leaking information. Her heart sank. Each smile, each carefully worded jest, became a tightrope walk above a pit of danger. Meanwhile, within her own home, the ledger was growing. It contained names, dates, troop movements, and cryptic observations. Each entry could be used to save lives, or, if discovered, to end hers. She often stayed awake late into the night, listening to the wind, the distant hum of artillery, and the quiet creak of floorboards, wondering if the officer lurking outside would ever come to the window and spot her work. Every shadow became a threat. Every knock could be the end. Then came a night that would test everything Marie had learned. An officer brought with him a visitor from Berlin, a strict investigator tasked with rooting out resistance activity. He was meticulous, examining every detail, every face. The room felt suffocating. Marie's hands were cold, and her mind raced. She had memorized the codes, the signals, the patterns, but could she survive scrutiny this close? Every word had to be chosen with precision. Every gesture measured. The investigator paused at her seat, scrutinized her ledger disguised as a menu, and frowned ever so slightly. Little did the officer know, Marie had anticipated this. Weeks ago, she had prepared a duplicate ledger, a harmless version filled with mundane observations, carefully designed to distract and satisfy any casual inspection. Now, as the investigator flipped through the pages, he found nothing incriminating. Marie maintained her calm, sipping tea, engaging in casual conversation, her smile unwavering. But inside, she felt the surge of adrenaline that only near-death moments could bring. Yet, the danger was far from over. Rumors began to swirl among the villagers, whispers of betrayal, suspicions of spies, and the deadly consequences of a wrong accusation. Marie felt the village's eyes on her, unsure who could be trusted, who might give her away. She pondered each interaction carefully. Could she trust the young courier who delivered messages for the resistance? Could she rely on her neighbors, or were they under the watchful eyes of the occupiers as well? Every choice carried weight. Every trust could be fatal. In the heart of this tension, a revelation emerged. Marie discovered that one of the German officers was not entirely loyal, secretly harboring doubts about the Nazi cause and the atrocities he had witnessed. She sensed an opportunity. With careful persuasion, she could manipulate information to the advantage of the resistance, using the officer's conscience as leverage. But doing so would require her to walk an even finer line, exploiting his humanity without exposing her own secrets. Could she succeed without being discovered? Could she manipulate a man whose training and discipline were forged in war? The nights grew colder, and the threat of exposure became ever more imminent. A misstep, a card played too slowly, a laugh held too long, a glance in the wrong direction, could unravel everything. Yet Marie persisted. Her courage was quiet but unwavering, a candle flickering defiantly against the darkness of war. Every decision became a test of wit, bravery, and resolve. And then, the moment of true peril arrived. A message from the resistance carried a chilling warning: German forces suspected a leak in the village. An inspection was imminent, and Marie's carefully constructed veil of normalcy was at risk of being torn away. She had to act, not just with courage, but with cunning, speed, and precision. Every card she had played, every observation she had recorded, led to this moment. Could she maintain her double life, protect the villagers, and continue the work that had already saved countless lives? Or would the web of deceit unravel, exposing her to a fate worse than death? Outside, the storm raged on, and shadows of uncertainty stretched across the village. Inside, Marie's eyes scanned the room, calculating, anticipating, holding her breath. The night held its secrets close, and she was about to discover how far her courage could truly take her. The night air hung heavy with tension as Marie Dupont moved quietly through the dimly lit streets, clutching her hidden ledger close to her chest. The warning from the resistance had come just in time. German officers were conducting inspections, searching for any hint of betrayal. Every shadow seemed to shift with intent, every distant footstep a possible threat. She could feel the eyes of the occupiers on the village, even though none could see her in the dark. Inside her home, the officers' card games continued as if nothing were amiss. Marie had anticipated the inspection, subtly shifting her papers, hiding critical information beneath innocuous notes, creating layers of deception that even a trained investigator could not unravel. Her pulse raced as she observed their movements, memorizing who spoke to whom, who lingered too long at a door, who scanned the walls with suspicion. One wrong breath, one misstep, could undo months of careful planning. The storm outside raged on, masking the soft whispers of the villagers who moved under the cover of rain to safety. Marie guided them quietly, signaling which routes were clear, which paths held danger. Every life she saved was a testament to the intelligence she had gathered, the courage she had cultivated, the risks she had silently endured. Imagine walking in her shoes, heart hammering, hands trembling, knowing the lives of neighbors, friends, even strangers, depended on your decisions, made with nothing more than observation, quick thinking, and nerve. Then, in a moment that seemed to stretch across eternity, the inspection concluded. The German officers, satisfied with the ordinary appearances and mundane records, departed. Relief washed over Marie, but it was tempered with exhaustion, fear, and a quiet awareness that the danger had not vanished, it had merely receded. The delicate dance of deception had succeeded, but only barely. In the days that followed, the resistance utilized the intelligence she had provided. Strategic warnings were sent, lives were spared, and critical operations disrupted the enemy's plans. Marie's courage had tangible results, yet she never sought recognition. The village whispered of a quiet hero, of a woman whose calm demeanor masked unimaginable bravery, whose seemingly ordinary actions had extraordinary consequences. But the war had left scars beyond what the eye could see. Every night, Marie would reflect on the moments she had faced, the fear of discovery, the moral choices, the silent calculation of risks and outcomes. Could she forgive herself for the lives that were lost despite her efforts? Could she reconcile the human costs with the small victories she had achieved? These questions lingered, heavy and persistent, echoing long after the cards were shuffled and the officers had left. One afternoon, after the liberation, Marie returned to the card table, now empty, quiet, a relic of a dangerous past. She traced her fingers over the polished wood, remembering the laughter, the tension, the subtle signals, and the whispered secrets that had flowed across its surface. The room smelled faintly of smoke and old wood, a ghostly reminder of nights filled with courage, calculation, and quiet defiance. She realized that the true battlefield had not always been in the open streets, but in the spaces between words, in the silent exchanges, in the observation and patience that define survival. History would record the grand battles, the movements of armies, the political decisions, but few would know the stories of those like Marie, ordinary individuals who became extraordinary through choice, bravery, and resilience. She had lived through moments where fear and hope coexisted, where a single glance, a single card, could determine life or death. And in those moments she had proven that courage did not always roar, sometimes it whispered, patient and deliberate, until the right moment arrived. Looking back, Marie understood the profound truth: the war was not just fought with guns and tanks, but with observation, wit, and quiet human courage. It was fought in hidden spaces, in whispered conversations, in hearts that refused to yield. And in that she found her own reflection, a testament to the human capacity for courage, intelligence, and hope even amidst unimaginable peril. Could you have done what she did? Could you have maintained calm, courage, and cunning while every moment teetered on the edge of life and death? Her story reminds us that bravery takes many forms, some loud and visible, others quiet and invisible, yet each just as vital in shaping the course of history. And as the village slowly healed, as the war receded into memory, Marie's legacy remained, a silent guardian whose choices had saved countless lives, a woman who proved that even in the darkest times, the sharpness of mind, the steadiness of heart, and the courage to act could illuminate a path through the shadows. The cards were no longer a game. They were a symbol of courage, of intelligence, and of the quiet but immeasurable power of one determined human being in the face of overwhelming darkness.